For this very style, this is the material I'm going to work with. I have 3 yard. Yeah, I have 3 yard for the short and for the kimono. And this is the one that I will be using to attach as the band. If you check the style very well, you can see that the band at the center front is another kind of Ankara. So that is the style we are going to recreate. Hello beautiful people, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. If this is your first time, you're welcome, and if you're my returning subscriber, thank you so much.
Start by folding my material into two. To determine the amount of folds you need, you have to add your shoulder measurement plus your sleeve measurement. The shoulder I'm working with is 15, half of 15 is 7.5 plus the length of my sleeve. Normally I'm using the length, my sleeve length of 12, but I'm going to minus 2 inch from that and I mark 10. So in total I'm going to make my fold is going to be 18. You know, at the sleeve we have another kind of Ankara, like a band to the sleeve. So I'm marking a bust point 10 inch, hip point 23 inch. The length of this kimono 38 inch plus 1 inch for hemming allowance. So I simply connect those points. The width of the neck I'm working with is 3 inch. We are actually cutting the back. After that we'll use the back to get the front. So for the depth of my back neck I make it 2 inch. We are now putting half of our shoulder measurement. Half of our shoulder measurement is 7.5 plus the sleeve length, okay, and we connect that point. That will serve as the sleeve opening. All right, I slope my shoulder by half an inch. I'm inputting our bust measurement, quarter of our bust measurement. I also repeat the same process at the hip line. I measure what I have at the hip line. I input it at the end of this joist and I blend this armhole. You have to curve it, after which I'm cutting it out. To make this kimono is very simple. So I'm now placing another material on fold. This time around I place the front piece, the one we cut before, on top of the new folded one. I'm marking 1.5 inch. That is the space I'm going to keep at the center front. So from the neckline I'm using for the front is 8 inch. I simply connect it to the same width of the neckline, the one we use for the front. The same width for the neck. It's only the depth of the neck that is different, after which we are cutting exactly what we have. And moving on, I'm going to, this is how we are supposed to sew. I'm placing my back piece and place my two front piece on each other. I pin it because I'm going to be sewing it at the shoulder line face. After sewing, we are going to cut the band for the sleeve. All right, so for the band I'm going to make the width of the band to be 2 inch, on fold, 2 inch on fold. Okay, so what I'm simply doing, I'm going to be cutting this band both for the one that I will use for the sleeve and also for the band. The width of the band is 2 inch. You can go for 2.5. It totally depends on what you want. All right, so I don't have enough, especially for the front, the center front. I have to join it up to get what I want. So for the sleeve I'm going to input it like this and stitch it down. After stitching cutting out the excess, and I will take it to the machine and top stitch. This top stitching is going to face the kimono, not the band. Okay, the top stitching, I'm going to top stitch to face the kimono. After that, I'm going to close the side like this and stitch following the direction, the same allowance that I had it, which was 1 inch. Okay, I'm simply pinning my work because I want to notch the midpoint. Yeah, you see the midpoint, and I can trim out any part that looks funny to have a very smooth and fine line. All right, we are also using the 2-inch band to pipe our center front dress. You can see it here. Even the joining that we have is at the hem and also at the center of this kimono. So I'm simply notching the armhole. Notch it close to the seam, but do not cut the seam, so that it will relax properly when we are ironing it out. And after ironing, guys, look at what we have. It's looking beautiful. Let's move on to the next part of our tutorial, which is the short. For the short, I've already come down by 1 inch, which is my starting line. From that starting line, I'm folding my tape and place it at that starting line. That folding is 1.5 inch. Okay, reason why I'm minusing 1.5 inch from our measurement is because of the band that will be attached to the short. So I mark our hip point 8 inch, and I also mark our cross measurement, which is 11 inch. All right, so I'm simply connecting this point. I mark the length of this short 17 inch plus 2 inch for hemming allowance. I'm simply labeling it out for the sake of this tutorial. For the full length. I divide our hip circumference, place it on the hip measurement and also on the crotch and the waist measurement, and I connect it on a straight line. At this angle part, this triangle part, I mark 1 inch in order to have a smooth curve, and I connect it like this. At this straight line, I come out by 2 inch, and that is the crotch extension. I lost the clip, that's why I'm telling you now. After that, I'm inputting our waist measurement, quarter of our waist measurement. I input it and I blend it back to the hip line. To have the midline, I'm simply measuring that my measurement and input it. I have the midpoint. You can fold your tape this way, or you measure what you have, you divide it by 2. When I get what I want, I input it at the cross line and also at the hem line, and I connect the point. I'm dividing our last circumference by 4, place it on, mark it on each of this midline, and I blend it back to the cross line. At the side seam of the cross line, I'm going to come in by half an inch, okay, to give my pants a shape. Normally, if you are going for a straight pant like this, you should be able to make something like this. All right, and guys, because I'm not going to do that, I'm simply going to mark another new line because I want to give my pants a little bit shape. So because of this half inch we added at the crotch, so all our new measurement is going to start from there, not the first one. I hope I'm not confusing you. All right, so we are simply doing what we did before. There is nothing serious there. We are just trying to give this pants a bit more shape. And also at the top of the pants, I add half inch for joining the band and the short together, after which I'm cutting it out. Okay, look at how simple and how easy it is to make these pants. When we get the front piece, this is actually the front piece of our pants. To achieve the back piece is very simple. Guys, also note that I have not add any seam allowance to this pants. Okay, so it therefore means that when I'm using it to cut on my main piece, I'm going to be adding seam allowance. If you have watched to this extent, you haven't subscribed, please do so, so that you always get notified each time I upload a new video. So I'm placing my front piece on a new paper. I make sure I left some space at the up and also by the side. I'm extending the back crush by 2.5 inch. At the waist, I'm going to measure the quarter of our waist measurement, then divide it by 4. Whatever I have, I'm going to mark on that point. I also go up by 2 inch. So that is what I'm doing now, and I'm going to connect it to this crush line with a cuff, after which I'm connecting it with a cuff like this. All right, this is to give more fitting to the shirt. At the side seam, I'm adding 1.5 inch. You can add 2 inch if you really want it to big, but I'm going for a fitted pants, so I'm adding 1.5 inch all around. Okay, and also note that, guys, we are inputting that at this back piece. For the front, there's no that. That's why we have this shape at the waistline like this, because of the that input that we put in. 1 inch, I take 1 inch for the dart. So after holding my dart, is it will go back. You can see the way I connect it. I'm simply connecting it like this. I will also show you how to connect it in case you are not putting that. Sorry, after this crush area, I'm also inputting 1.5 inch, and I simply blend it. I think that this curve is too much, so I'm trying to go in more, trying to go in a little and blend it. All right, we don't have too much, we don't need too much excess at this point. That's why you see me doing like this. In case you don't want to input that, connect it this way. Have you seen the way I'm connecting it at the sides of this pants? But because I'm going to use that, I will continue with the face line. All right, so I'm now marking my dart point. I take 1/2 inch on both sides. I'm going to draw it out. This is my dart. After that, I'm cutting it out. All right, please, if you are enjoying this video, do not fail to give this video a thumbs up by liking this video, so that YouTube will help you to push it to more people who are also interested to learn a thing like this. All right, this is the only means you can support me. Just click the like button, and thank you for doing that. So you can see what I'm doing. Before I cut this waistline, I'm folding this dart line so that I will not have any shots of material, or it will not look funny. I'm also indicating add seam allowance, so that I will not forget. I've added 1 inch at the side seam. For the waist, we already added the seam allowance to our pattern paper and also at the in line of it. For the crotch area, we added 1/2 inch. For the crotch area, we added 1/2 inch. If you are sewing it for a flat tummy person, at the center part of this our pants, mark 1 inch and blend it to the side seam. But because the person I'm sewing it for has actually have a big tummy, I'm not going to do that. I will leave it that way. So I'm going to place, I'm sewing first at the crotch area. After that, when I have the two crotch area sewn down, I'm going to place it You see this down part of our shirt, open the seam allowance, try to mesh it, join the seam allowance, make sure that the seam allowance align. You sew it down, and after sewing down, you sew the side seam by 1 inch. I'm actually confirming our measurement. So when I measure it, I have the correct measurement, which supposed to be 39. Normally our waist is 37, so I'm trying to 2 inch is for the seam allowance, which make it 39. After that, when I notice that I have what I want, I've joined down my band. The length of the band, as I told you, is 1.5. So after stitching the band like this, I'm folding in the excess inward, making sure that the fold is exactly 1 inch. That's why I'm measuring it out. So after that, I'm going to top stitch inside the line, okay, inside the line, so that it will appear that there is no seam at all. So after which, this is what we have. It's looking beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. Till I see you all in my next video. Bye.